Oh, okay.
More synchronized.
All right, welcome to the We Geek Together podcast. We'll go down the table. My name is Andy.
This is Everett.
I'm Spencer.
We all work and or live at the tavern in one way or another.
I never leave.
And we're talking about games. We just want to talk about our favorite games, why they're our favorite games, why do we like them. But before we do, we're going to have the shortest first call for drinks because we're here from directly recording our last podcast.
Yes.
So I guess
What's new with you in the last half hour?
Yeah, I went out and talked to nothing.
I refilled my water.
Yeah.
I'm nothing.
So yeah, we usually do this segment to catch up on life, but we're recording a twofer today. So let's just get into the topic. I have a lot of fun and interesting things to talk about. Games. So yeah, Everett, do you want to go first? You want to talk about
Sure.
the games that have impacted
So,
your life?
There's one main one which I was into back in high school when, or maybe I was in middle school. You guys might have been in high school. Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yu-Gi-Oh! Was the first big one. You started showing us younger siblings the anime, and we got super into it. I built a 6 samurai deck, which I was very proud of.
Dude, and it was good.
It was like a, what do you call it? Cancellation deck, I guess. Like if my opponent pulled out spells or trap cards, I could just nullify it most of the time with my monster's effect, so you couldn't really do much.
It sucked.
Yeah, I loved it.
I hated it.
Yeah, it's changed a lot in the last 10 years. I haven't really been able to keep up with it, but to stay relevant, they've kept producing more and more cards that are just like more and more powerful. And if you have a little bit older cards, a little bit older deck, you just can't hang with the new
current
cards.
meta.
Like
Yu-Gi-Oh! Is so interesting to me because it has power crept itself so hard.
Yeah.
Because it's been out for 25 years.
Yep.
This was their 25th year anniversary. And yeah, there's probably 1 or 2 cards from the first rotation of cards or the first sets that are barely playable. But
like Mirror Force or something.
Well,
yeah.
Not even.
Not even Mirror Force?
No, dude, Mirror Force isn't meta.
And I don't know a lot about like the high tier competitive things with Yu-Gi-Oh, but from what I understand, they can just take old cards and continue supporting those, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if Blue Eyes White Dragon is tier meta, but I know there's lots and lots more support now than there was when it first started off, and that's a way that you can that Yu-Gi-Oh can make those old cards that are iconic and recognizable, you know what I mean, that people love and know, and keep them relevant. Is that
Yeah, no, that's
true?
absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah, they re-release support, so there's new 6 Samurai support.
Yeah.
If you want to build a 6 Samurai deck.
The craziest thing I think they did was they kept adding new mechanics to the game.
Yeah, brand new
mechanics. With the newest set, you can do this thing that no other set's ever been able to do because now we have XYZ summons
it would
on top of fusion summons, on top of synchro summons. Like you have this whole list of different mechanics
that's not too unique because like Magic the Gathering, for example, there are monsters that have new mechanics. Like
literally every set there's 3 new mechanics.
Yeah, like I don't know. I remember when Scavenge became a new mechanic where you could banish cards from your graveyard to power up your monsters. And that hadn't really been a thing before. But with Yu-Gi-Oh!, instead of it just being a new mechanic, it's a new system. So you used to do things this way, but now we have grafted on an entirely new system to do something entirely different. So instead of
more powerful usually.
And more powerful. So instead of just being able to having a new mechanic for your monsters, it's like a whole new rule set.
It's like you're playing a new game every few years.
It's a new game. pretty much. It's a different way to play. And so it's really hard actually for brand new players to get in because they've grafted on so many systems, not mechanics, systems now, that you got to learn the original system from Yu-Gi-Oh, but then
on
the
top
other,
of that, and then
all
on top
the
of
other new
that,
systems.
yeah.
But this podcast isn't to poop on TCGs, but
No,
Spencer,
that was
No.
like my favorite card game.
Well,
and
and-
it's great still in a lot of ways.
And I don't think that that's
it's
necessarily
not pooping on it.
No.
yeah, it's not like a bad element. I mean, you can find bad things about that.
Sure.
There are negatives for new players, for example, but it also keeps the game really fresh.
True.
And there's
Yeah.
always like a shiny new thing to be going after.
It's engaging.
With Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
Furthermore, it has a funny effect on like the Yu-Gi-Oh finance or like secondary market finance, because you can have a set of cards that are printed and they're like medium to bad, and then you add this new rule set on it. Now all of a sudden there's a card from those old stuff that interact in a new way with this new
True.
Yeah.
these new mechanics, and that card is super valuable out of nowhere all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And being used in the top tier decks
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And so elements of that are interesting with Yu-Gi-Oh, I think. I'm not really a big Yu-Gi-Oh player, but I would sort of consider myself the resident TCG guy.
You're the
Yeah.
TCG guy for sure.
Because I'm mostly a Magic player. I think I've said that before on the podcast. To me, more or less every game is Magic. I can see like it's kind of like the grandfather of all card games, but in a large way, it's kind of the grandfather of board games as well. For current, not like it was the first board game, but like a lot of new board games have mechanics or elements or whatever, philosophies, structures, whatever, that are based off of Magic. And it's fun. Like, have you ever played a game called oh crap, what is it?
Splendor.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't remember where
You're welcome,
I left off
guys.
to pick up with this, but I was playing Splendor.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm actually very bad at Splendor, for the record. Like, I can't explain it. I'm decent at most board games, but I for no reason at all, I'm just
looked up pro
absolute
strats
trash.
for Splendor.
My-
Have you really?
Yeah.
My parents play that game all the time,
So they're
and
pretty
my
good at
mom always gets pissed at my dad.
So that's why I've looked pro strats up. So
I am absolute garbage. Like, I'll be planning my turn several turns ahead, but then all of a sudden the game's just over and I can't explain it. It's a fun game, but I
It is a
don't
fun
like
game.
it because I suck so bad at it. But have you noticed that the colors of that game are white, blue, red, black, green?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how like I'll notice that while I'm playing, I'm like, all I need is a teamer
more
to
blues.
get this
Mhm.
next card or whatever, and just like use Magic terminology. But anyway, sorry, I don't mean to go off on that tangent. In my like perspective, almost all games are just some variation of Magic, which is a game of resource accumulation.
Yeah.
You're just trying to get more of what you have so that you can overpower your opponents while they get what they have.
Yeah.
Is that how Catan works?
Catan's absolutely a resource game.
Absolutely. And it's an interesting variation because there's a really cool aspect of like trading resources.
Right.
Yeah.
And like trying to let you get some of what's good for you so I can get more of what's good for me.
I want to play Catan at some point.
It's
a good
super
one.
cool. We
Yeah.
should absolutely play it.
Yeah. So there's a few different, because like people have categorized games. There's like politic games where it's more interacting with the actual players than the mechanics of the
Yeah.
game. There's like strategy games. I would say like Splendor's a strategy game, or Catan is a politic
Risk.
strategy game. Risk is a strategy game. So I don't know, what do you guys lean towards? What games do you like? I like politics somewhat because I like interacting with people. But
I don't know if I've ever played a game that's really a politics game, unless you call frickin' Munchkin a politics game.
Have you ever played Werewolf?
No.
What the heck?
Mafia?
What are we supposed to do with you?
I've
There's
played Mafia, but
Mafia,
that's not a
Werewolf.
board
Have you
game.
heard of Skull King
No.
or Secret Hitler?
No.
Yeah. Those are great.
I'm basically just naming variations
Yeah.
of
Of Mafia
Werewolf.
and
But
Yeah.
for strategy, I loved playing Risk when we were kids. We had the Halo version of Risk.
That
So
was
instead
dope.
of tanks, you had like the Covenant
Covenant.
tanks and everything. Loved it. But yeah, that was a good time.
When I was in high school, I had a buddy with like a bunch of different Risk games, and so
Yeah.
we would play like like Greek mythology
Oh my
Risk, and
goodness.
we would play Lord of the Rings Risk,
Yeah.
and like all the
Lord of
different.
the Rings Risk.
It was super sick.
Okay, and this is my favorite aspect in the TCG. It's politics.
Really,
Commander politics is some of my favorite parts of playing Commander.
that's so interesting to me because I play a lot of Commander, maybe mostly Commander.
Yeah, you play way more than either of us.
What
And-
politics are there in Commander?
So, oh my goodness, thank you for asking. So in Magic, like most TCGs, originally it was just a 1v1 game, right? Where you've
Mhm.
got your life total, your opponent has their life total, insert maybe a couple of odd win conditions here or there.
Yeah.
But basically, you're trying to do everything on your board to bring their life total down
Sure.
to 0. Commander has basically the same objective where you're trying to be the last person standing, but there's this element of I can just like mow down this one opponent. But if I'm doing that, there's 2 other players who are watching me who are like, "Oh, frick, he's
Oh.
scary." And now
they'll
they're
team
gonna
up.
like side with the person who's being
Okay.
bullied. To now there's like this unspoken political truce between these 3 players coming after me, the bully.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I can relate to that a bit because we would sometimes play these like 4-on duel, these
Yeah, we
4-way
did
duels
4-player
with
Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day.
And so that
And it would absolutely work like that. You'd make silent alliances based on what the people were doing because you don't want to get beat by that scary player. Yeah.
well, and some players like to add like overt alliances. Like, hey, if you leave my thing alone,
Yeah.
I won't destroy your thing for a turn
Okay.
or for whatever. If you don't attack me,
Like
then I
actually at the table be like, look, bro, I won't swing at you. Don't swing at me.
where it's an element,
Yeah.
like a mechanical element of the game.
And some people don't like that
Well,
at all.
See,
I'll be
I've
honest.
never thought of that as a mechanical element of the game because there's nothing in the cards. There's nothing. There's
There are
nothing
some
on
cards-
paper.
There are some
generally.
cards that lean into it lately
Really?
because
Yeah.
since Commander has gotten popular in the
Yeah.
last 5, 6, 7 years, Wizards of the Coast has decided, let's maybe lean into this Commander game, and they'll
Mhm.
print cards that try to lean more into the
Like where
the-
you vote with people.
Yeah, for
and that
example,
kind of
things like that.
stuff.
Wow.
And so it's not like a huge mechanic.
Yeah.
It's mostly unspoken or rather unwritten, where like the players will just do it themselves. But
Yeah.
there are.
I've
some
always
cards that do
just
that.
thought that was just like
You were
gameplay
gonna say
style.
something though, because I was saying
yes,
I love that
I
element.
really don't like the political aspect of Commander. It's like
Yeah.
one of my least favorite things because, in my opinion, so I also play Commander like a certain subsection of the Commander player base. In that I kind of want the game to play out the way it should.
Ideally,
Yeah.
mechanically, the
It's-
perfect way it should be played.
Like if I politic with
Mm.
you and I'm able to basically like manipulate you to do what I want
Mm-hmm.
and then win because I was the most manipulative, it feels less good to me than if I was to just like be the best player at the board,
But
or if
have
I
the
was to
best
do the
deck.
coolest thing.
Yeah,
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 you know
yeah,
what
yeah.
I mean? And so but I don't mind politicking sometimes and things like that, like light politics stuff. But I was in a game the other day where 2 of my friends, one of them had the obvious commanding board state where they were like scary. They had one creature that could basically destroy any creature on the board. And another one of my friends who was playing a creature-based deck who needed their creatures to live. And so he targeted the first friend's threat that could mow down any creature. And that friend tried aggressively to politic. And then in the end, friend number 2 didn't go for it because that was just the biggest,
threat.
scariest
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
and it had to be taken care of. And so friend number 1 was like kind of salty about it. He's like, why wouldn't you play the politics with me? It's like, well, listen, man, you don't really have a lot of
To swing
political
in.
power
Yeah,
here
yeah.
because your thing was obviously the scariest thing. What else were they going to destroy on the board? There was nothing else that was really going anywhere. And so that's the kind of thing, like I feel like the politics opens up the door for more feel bads
True.
than just like playing through the way the game is sort of supposed to, if you will, be played.
That makes sense.
It opens
Yeah.
more emotions for sure. in some games.
Some throwing under the bus situations.
And an argument could be said that it gives certain people a unfair advantage because
Sure.
there are people who are just better at wording things, more charismatic. They can get their point across. They're more persuasive. And so if you're one of those people, you're going to more times come out better on those politics situations just because you know how to deal with people.
Yeah.
And that's doesn't matter how good you built your deck, doesn't matter how well you played it if you've got a Chad at the table who everybody swoons over and does whatever they want. So
Yeah.
This kind of reminds me, there is a game that I very much love that is so politics based. Maybe one of the most politics based games of all time, Monopoly.
do
Which
you like Monopoly?
love
Why do you like
Monopoly.
You
Monopoly?
like
What are you
Monopoly?
doing on this podcast?
God,
What in the
fire you
world?
so bad. Oh
Look,
my
I know
I don't know
it-
any games
I know
except for
it's
the
the-
most toxic game
the
that's ever been
worst
played.
game
The game
ever
that's
made.
ruined more relationships,
Here's the
ended
thing.
families.
It
Here's the
was
thing.
literally made to show how capitalism is terrible.
I love,
No one likes to play with me. I'll say that for sure.
I
but-
love that you just present something that you actually really care about
And
and,
we
love,
both are
and we
just
just immediately dump on it.
Oh,
Sorry
man.
about that.
No,
Yeah,
that's
no,
okay.
that-
I was expecting
that
it
was rude
because
of
no
us.
one likes Monopoly.
It is a brutal
Um,
game. It's actually, I want to let you say what you want to say.
Sure,
about,
yeah.
But one thing that I don't like about Monopoly, and that I don't like about there's a handful of games that I've played, is that you can tell who is going to win way before the game is over.
Yeah.
There's a game that I like called Photosynthesis
Yeah.
that's also really cool and really beautiful, but the biggest flaw is that there's 3 rounds of the game, and by the end of round 2, you know who's won.
No.
Yeah.
And it's not fun to play that last little
That
while
final
like
round.
that.
Yeah,
I
agree.
get that.
Monopoly, you know that halfway through.
Not all the time. I have absolutely played games of Monopoly where it looked like someone was in the lead for a really long time, but they make a bad move or a bad decision and the tables flip.
More likely, they just roll bad 4 times in a row. Like they just hit go to jail or something
Yeah.
like that, and then they just can't
They
develop
lose
at
all
Well,
all.
their
that
money or
also can
something.
happen with
Yeah.
Risk. But my
Mhm,
thing about
mhm.
Risk is it's pretty obvious for the last little while who's going to win at Risk because they've got most of the world and they're just
Yeah.
trapping you
Trying
in
to get you in
Australia or
Australia.
whatever. But the thing is that when that happens, if technically it's not over, right, till the
Right.
fat lady sings, but then in order for the underdog to come back and win, you add an extra hour of gameplay
Like
on,
an hour and a half.
where
Yeah.
they're just
Sure.
crawling trying to get as many
Yeah.
points as they can, and it's kind of all up to luck.
Yeah.
Monopoly, in my opinion, has kind of the same issue where if the the underdogs are going to come back and win, it just makes the game longer.
Now, Monopoly has a big element of luck. Who's able to land on those good spaces and buy them. But I feel like it's balanced out because
I say it's 90% luck. I say Monopoly is
Look,
90% luck,
sure.
and there's a little bit of choice.
Yeah.
A little bit.
One
well,
of my
because
favorite
you can choose not to buy a property, right?
sure.
Yes.
and
that's literally the only input you have.
To buy the
Yes
property
or no.
I don't know.
not
I don't
buy
know
the
if I have
property,
ever
sure.
not bought a property that
I
I
mean,
could.
usually
There are
the strategy
properties where you should buy,
95%
and
of the
there's
time.
properties where you shouldn't buy that, no matter how much
Interesting.
you build them up,
Interesting.
aren't gonna really be lucrative.
Yeah, I watched a video of somebody who trained an AI to win Monopoly every time, and
Yeah.
so now I know the perfect land to buy every
You
time.
have to
So-
get the red and yellow corner. That is
Interesting.
No,
that
dude.
is the
Nope.
best.
Nope. The AI says it's the oranges.
Really?
The oranges.
I think I meant the orange, the red and the orange.
I
are the
just
two
buy
you need to get.
Yeah.
blue
Yeah.
every time, and that's all.
Well, the problem with the blue is they are so expensive to build
Sure.
up, and the chances of someone landing on them are so low. It's pretty easy to go bankrupt.
Sure.
building
Yeah,
up the blue.
the orange is the best bang for buck, and it's also one of the most heavily trafficked spots.
Yeah,
so if you
the
can-
orange
if
and
you-
red, that side of the board, if you can get it,
big.
usually
it's
game.
big.
Usually
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
Interesting.
So
Anyway, there's some strategy to it, and for the random elements, they can be balanced out by the fact that you can make deals with people,
yes,
by the politics of it.
yes.
One of my favorite things like one of the greatest things that have happened to content in recent memory is those videos that you'll see of people playing Monopoly, but like you don't know they're playing Monopoly. It's just one person who's like, "Oh, I don't know if I can pay rent this month," and they like unbutton their
my
shirt,
goodness,
and,
yeah,
and
then
he's like,
and they're
"Oh,
like-
I'm sure we can figure out something," and
It's
then
like,
they like pans
"Bros,
over,
it's
and their
just
friends are like,
Monopoly."
"Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. guys, we're playing Monopoly."
Yeah, those are good sketches.
Those are so funny.
It's so funny. Yeah.
So
That's my bad take.
no,
on-
it's
on
not a bad
games,
take.
yeah.
I'm sorry to poop on your love of Monopoly.
Just so you know, we probably won't play with you.
That's
It
okay.
is a-okay if you like Monopoly. Good for you.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting relationship I have with games: is I like to win.
No.
And so if I play a game more than once, like if I play a board game once or twice with a buddy, sure. But if my buddies are like, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna start playing Monopoly every
You become
week,"
a tryhard.
I will definitely start looking at
Researching.
Yeah.
what are the Splendor, Monopoly, Bang, like any game. I'll start diving into the meta, the competitive scene, so
Yeah.
I could figure out how to like take
How to beat
apart
all the
games.
casuals.
Yeah. And I'm never at a point where I'm the best. I've never been the best. Like Mom still beats me at Splendor, even though technically I put in more hours researching the game Splendor.
Because her and dad play that like nightly.
But yeah, that's just a fascination I have with games, is like learning and mastering the mechanics. The only reason I haven't done it with like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh is just because they're so vast. And so like I've been looking at CEDH decks, and I really want to build one. Keurig. I really want to build a Keurig.
We can work on
one.
that.
But yeah, it's some games are too big, but I like to try hard.
I have kind of the opposite problem. And my wife makes fun of me because when I play Magic, I'm not actually trying to win most of the time.
You're trying to have fun.
Well, yes, and winning is often fun, and I can respect that, and I respect people who that's like their goal is to like have fun by winning. But especially, I think part of it is because like most of my Magic playing has been through Commander, and Commander is a 4-player game, and so if you play 100 games with the same pod,
You should win 25% of the time.
theoretically you should win 25% of the time. And so I learned early on you have to figure out how to have fun without winning, because if you only want
Yeah.
to win, you're having a bad time 75% of the time.
Wow.
Or you're making other people have a bad time while you increase your win rate.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
I
Yeah.
should definitely caveat that I am not a toxic.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
ways to, be good and bad at both of these things. Like I recognize that the kind of like hipster, oh, I don't want to win guy can also be like really annoying.
Yeah,
like do dumb
absolutely.
things or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think
I'm
it's
just gonna sabatage myself
Yeah,
to ruin
yeah.
everyone
And then it's
else's
like,
time.
there's decks where it's like I'm gonna make it so no one can win, and it's gonna be
Oh,
awesome.
man.
And 3 people are like, okay, cool, bro, nobody won again.
Yeah.
But I lost my train of thought completely. So,
But yeah,
oh no, what I was gonna say is Magic. The thing that I like about Magic is what you said about it's so vast that it actually gives you an opportunity to sort of express yourself, find a creative way to like build a deck or do something like weird and unique. And you could do it like there's 30,000 cards or whatever
There's
and 30 years of stuff.
Infinite amount of possibilities with Magic.
Yeah, you can
Literally.
find cards like from the beginning of the game that people were like, "Oh, I didn't realize that does that thing."
Yeah.
That interaction with this other card or whatever, just because there's so many of them. And I think that's in my opinion, the thing that makes Magic the best game is the options, the like things
The
that you
limitless
can do.
possibilities.
And I've played some newer card games. Like after Magic, I think my favorite TCG is Flesh and Blood.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Because I think that the mechanics to that game are genius.
Yeah.
Like such a cool way to balance the resource system. And it really like it feels like 2 players just like duking it out.
Yeah.
More
Flesh and
so than
Blood's
any
so
other
cool.
game I've ever played.
Mhm.
But the thing I don't like about Flesh and Blood is you're really railroaded into certain builds with each hero.
Yeah.
Because there's just not that much. There aren't that many ranger cards or mechanologist cards
Yeah,
or
if
things like
you
that.
have the ninja hero, you're
You
playing
have to
a
do the ninja
deck.
hero deck. Yeah,
There
Can't
isn't
get
like a
creative with it.
ninjutsu.
Yeah.
There isn't like a ninjutsu deck or a support ninja deck or
or like
a,
some weird rogue effect that you can do, or like
yeah, you turn
if
your
you
ninja
don't-
into a spy. Yeah,
if you don't play the tier deck, you are playing a bad deck.
Yeah.
And I don't really like that. I like to be able to like figure out something cool and new and interesting with it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think a lot of TCGs are like that. I think Lorcana, I haven't played a lot of Lorcana.
I haven't either.
But it feels like basically just like Magic Light. Yeah, without
Like
the
Diet Magic.
without the expansive like backlog of cards that you can go into.
Sure.
Maybe one day some of these games are like more dense and can like rival Magic with some of the
But
card
Magic
players.
I don't know if
so
Lorcana
many
will ever
years.
get there. Like,
And I don't know if Lorcana wants to get there. You know what I mean?
No,
Like that game gets a lot of its revenue off of just being a
IP
Disney
recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and of course Disney IP, it just grows, but I can't see it ever being expansive enough to even kind of compare to Magic. It's just it's
Well,
going to stay
especially since
limited.
Magic is now gone into the universes.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my word, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
You got
love or hate
Warhammer
it. Love or
Magic.
hate it. Like Magic is becoming one with everything.
Magic will encompass
Magic.
all.
Magic is just
It
the
was always
Nirvana.
Magic.
It's just the Nirvana of card games.
Yeah.
I think that the secret for card games is not to try to be Magic or better than Magic.
Yeah. Good.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can't.
Like for example, Pokemon is like
Pokemon.
Yeah,
Pokemon is Pokemon.
It's just a collector's game where people who love Pokemon will buy the cards
Mm.
every time, forever, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that just works. Like it doesn't have to have a robust system of mechanics and
No.
like
You collect the different Pokemon and then you fight.
Well,
with
and
them.
little kids buy Pokemon all the time.
yes. And that totally works for that game, and I'm down for it.
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh is not quite like that, but has some elements of it.
It tied into the weeb, the anime fan
Yeah.
base.
Well, and Yu-Gi-Oh creates products to lean into the nostalgia, right? Like, didn't
Yeah.
they re-release the first sets?
They release like the main 3 character like decks like once every 2 or 3 years.
But they
Yeah.
also did redo the first sets.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like callbacks to it. But also they're trying to do their own stuff without the original anime, which I think is really interesting.
Sure.
But they hired they created an animation company. So they're going back to making animes about Yu-Gi-Oh, but it has nothing to do with like Yami Yugi
Interesting.
and Joey.
Yeah. Just
or
branching off.
or trading card games. They're actually just about the lore of the monsters of the cards.
Oh, that's cool.
So, if Magic the Gathering, it was about, the cool animated shorts about planeswalkers. They're doing that for Magic, which is
Interesting.
actually really cool.
That is
Yeah.
cool.
So
Has any of
they've
that
been
come out,
teasing-
or is that
they-
just
they've
they're
released
teasing
trailers?
it?
They're,
Yeah.
they're
Cool.
teasing it.
That's cool.
But so yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh has the weeb community. Magic has everything else. Disney's leaning into like the Disney IP. Pokemon
has its own IP.
is its own thing.
We should make our own card game.
Boy, I was thinking about if we made it. I was talking to Spencer about it because I think we have something pretty unique.
I was like, my issue is that
But
I just
don't have a mechanic. I don't have a
yeah.
fun game.
I
That's
just
the
don't
problem.
think I'll ever make a game that's better than Magic. like I might just be like
He's
a
like
fanboy.
Magic, top tier. Can't beat it.
That's how I feel. Like I think Magic is the greatest game maybe ever made, and I like if I build my own
that's
game,
pretty
I just
hard
would be
to
like,
compete. Yeah.
I would just be like, I could do this in Magic, and that would be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. So what you're
I
saying?
see what you're saying.
What you're
Yeah.
saying is don't try to beat Magic. Don't try to be a better Magic because good luck.
Yeah, you got to be different.
So you're saying every game is like Magic. I
Yeah.
am going to say, have either of you played a miniature war game?
I kind of.
No,
Kind of.
I have.
I mean,
some
you could say
friends-
chess is a miniature war game in a way.
sure.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I never thought about
you
that.
You can
That's cool,
absolutely
though.
say chess is a miniature
that
war
makes
game.
chess way more hardcore.
In fact, we should take Warhammer minis and make a chess set out of
Yeah.
it.
Oh, it's already been done.
Oh, certainly,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's cool. So I have played a little bit of Warhammer, but I've actually painted more Warhammer minis than I have played Warhammer.
Yeah,
Andrew,
like
you fall
about
into that camp.
85%. I absolutely do. I painted way more than I've played.
I would say so. I also played HeroClix once upon a
Oh,
time.
HeroClix,
I've never heard of
man.
HeroClix.
HeroClix is like Warhammer for like it's like the gateway drug to Warhammer.
Like
Warhammer Light.
10-year-old. Yeah.
And I had kind of a bad experience with it because I played it as an adult. I never played it as a kid.
Oh, okay.
But I had a acquaintance who had a bunch of HeroClix stuff, and he brought it to a game night one time, and he had us all play. But he did that thing that's like kind of frustrating, where like he kind of gave himself the
best
good stuff,
figures.
and
Oh my goodness.
like it was like we were kids, kind of. But so I had a little bit of a bad experience with HeroClix.
Understandable. HeroClix is very basic. I'm not the biggest a fan, but that's how I grew. I started with Mage Knights. Back in the 90s, they had this. It was pre-HeroClix. It was before HeroClix. It was just fantasy, but the same thing, clicking base. Mage Knights then evolved into Mech Warrior. They had Mech Warriors, again, with a clicking base, but they were giant mechs with missiles
I remember those
and
guys.
lasers.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then I stumbled upon Warhammer, and my life was changed forever. And the aspect of, like, being a omnipotent being and you're controlling a whole field of battle is such, like, I don't know, it's a cathartic, it's a very testosterone filled,
Sure.
like, you're commanding this army to go fight against your enemies, and it's like chess but bigger because there's so many different rules, so many different mechanics. So I love miniature games, like, and that's part of my love for D&D is because I already loved miniature games, and then the fact that D&D can use a grid and it can use miniatures and you can actually like plot it out and stuff like that. Like, I love that stuff. So I'm a war gamer first before I became a D&D player. But I have since gone down and I've learned that there's so many cool miniature games, and I've always wanted to play them all, and I don't have time.
Well, we've got on our sort of content schedule, we're planning on including some like miniature war game content and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
in fact,
this table can get big enough to hold a whole war game board.
There's a miniature game for the Song of Ice and Fire.
Really?
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
So for Game of Thrones, they have a whole and you play the different armies.
Cool.
This one right here was one. This is The Walking Dead. It's a miniature game, but the cool thing about it is it's all you can play it cooperatively.
Oh, cool.
So you and all your buddies are playing
Against
different
the
survivors,
zombies.
and
Yeah.
the mechanics of it is the zombies react in certain ways depending on what you do, but it's all game mechanic based. So the board game's playing against you. So you and your buddies are just trying to survive against the zombie swarm, which is really
That's
cool.
a cool idea.
I
Actually.
really like cooperative games. Like, have you ever played Pandemic?
Yeah, Pandemic
is good. Or there's a new game that I played recently, relatively new, called Forbidden Desert.
I haven't played that one.
It's so the concept of the game is one of my favorite like newish games that I played, where you have the game board changes every time. Basically, you've got little squares, kind of like Catan but square, and you can arrange them randomly, and they all start face down. And the idea is you and your team that you're playing with, you guys were on a sort of airship that crash landed in the desert, and you've got to find the pieces of your airship and get them back to the crash site.
Oh, so you're scavenging around the desert.
Yeah, and so on your turn, you can move. You have a certain number of action points.
Yeah,
and you can move that many spaces, or you can move some spaces, and you can excavate
that spot.
That spot. So flip it over,
Oh.
or every turn there's a sandstorm that goes, and you get sand that piles up on the different pieces.
Yeah.
So you can spend your action points clearing sand off, excavating spots on the game board, moving, or there's like a couple other things that you can do.
Yeah.
And so you find if you excavate a spot and it has like the red piece of the ship, you have to find a second spot that is a red piece of the ship, and then where those two pieces like intersect is where you find the red piece of the ship.
Oh,
That sounds like such a cool.
It's a
co-op
really,
game.
really
Yeah,
cool
that's
game.
cool.
And so
What's it called again?
It's called Forbidden Desert.
Forbidden
and
Desert.
so you're like fighting against, because if the game runs out of sand, then you lose.
Yeah.
You also have to, there's like a water mechanic that you have to manage. If you run out of water, you die.
Yeah.
And so there's like a couple of different things, but the cooperative element of it and like the like players against the game, as well as some of these other mechanics, is really, really cool. I really like that one.
Cooperative games, I think, are some of the, I don't know, it's the best feel-good design.
Yeah.
Because, like,
because either y'all win or y'all lose.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if I'm playing with people maybe that I don't know if I can like trust you to be a mature adult while we're playing this game, absolutely a cooperative game is a game that I'm going to get more down with.
There's a dungeon crawler co-op game that we have here in the tavern, but the name of it's escaping me.
Is it called 5
No,
Minute Dungeon?
it's
5
one of
Minute
the
Dungeon. Yeah.
5 Minute Dungeon is a super fun game.
I love that game.
It's
so
just like
quick.
so silly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know that one.
It's good. We'll
Yeah,
play it
it's
sometime.
fun.
Another cooperative game is the Trogdor board game. Where
Just try not to get burninated.
well, you're all
Right?
you all play Trogdor.
Oh, okay.
And so you're the one doing the burninating. You each just
so
take
freaking
turns.
funny.
You just take turns
I
controlling
love it.
Trogdor.
That's a game
So
for the few people who know, because Trogdor's old at this point. He's so old.
yeah.
No one knows Homestar Runner. It makes me sad.
Classic almost.
Yeah.
Boy, we've spent a lot of time talking about games.
And we could go on, honestly.
Dude,
yeah.
There's so many games and so much to say about them.
I
I gotta
love
play
games.
this Red Tavern Inn game.
Well, you haven't played that one?
No, I did. I gotta play it.
Oh, yeah.
With our old buddies
Chatting.
from Washington. And it was so much fun.
Yeah, that one's a good one. That one's a good one. This is one of my favorite card games. Bang. And I got Will Wheaton to sign it.
Did you?
Yo.
Yeah, Will Wheaton signed that
Was
one.
was that before you moved here to Washington? Was that at
that
like
was
the
at
old
Washington Emerald City.
the Emerald City Comic Con? Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, that's one of my favorite because he ran a tabletop YouTube channel a while ago.
I
on
really
Geek
like
and
that-
Sundry.
that
and they would
channel,
just play
yeah.
a different game every episode.
That's cool.
And bring
Uh,
different
and
actors or
different
celebrities
guests
on.
and stuff. They never played Bang, and I commented a few times, "You guys should play Bang."
Play
But-
big.
We could do something like that.
Yeah, that would be fun. Just like a chill
Yeah.
where
Board
we have
game.
different people.
I'd love
on.
to play Bang with you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great game. It's like it's Mafia.
Yeah.
It's Mafia, but
You got a
more
sheriff, you got
mechanically.
an outlaw, you got a couple of other
Mhm,
guys.
mhm, mhm. But yeah, thanks for talking
Games
about
are fun.
Games are
Yeah.
fun.
Until they're not.
until they're Monopoly.
Yeah, unless it's
Yeah.
Monopoly. Yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for tuning in on this episode of Geek Together. Find our social medias, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all under the We Geek Together name. And if you have not registered for the biggest game of D&D ever played, what are you doing? Yeah,
Come on.
this is the coolest game to be a part of.
If you need to get hyped about it, we have a live stream
Coming up.
that should be. We should be
Live.
It should be
Next
moving
week?
now.
You,
by
Yeah.
now.
you should be watching the episodes.
Check it out.
Check out the podcast episodes with me and Johnny or me and Spencer talking about the Dead Wars. We're gonna have much more content out. This is
And
like
a
the
secret plan that hasn't been announced
oh
yet.
man,
Have
You
we
teased
announced
that
it
on
yet?
Johnny's
we
episode.
haven't
yet.
announced it yet,
All
but
right, well,
boy,
we'll tell you later.
we've got something cool coming
Oh,
up. Anyway, thanks for
excited.
watching. Have a good night.